It's so great to see people reconnecting with nature through the Green Corn Project. Right now we're going to be talking about wildlife in the garden and providing water, food, and shelter for our feathered and furry friends out there. I'm joined by one of our favorite guests on the program, Charles Stevens from Wild Birds Unlimited. Welcome back to Central Texas Gardener.
Thank you, Tom. It's great to be back.
It's always fun to have this conversation with you. One of my favorite subjects, really. I think it's my favorite thing about the garden is the visitors. And this has been a tough year for the visitors.
It has been. This drought has been quite remarkable, going on a year plus now, and we're finding stresses in our wild places here, and there are things that people can do in their own spaces that can help create or alleviate that pressure that's been put on our wildlife, birds in general, and everybody else that's furry and whatnot.
Right. Well, I know that you're actually working with the city of Austin, collaborating with a number of groups that are really trying to educate people about this.
Indirectly, we do. Yeah, we provide funding as part of our gross revenue to a nonprofit organization, the National Wildlife Federation, that has a program that's collaborative with the city that's called Wildlife Austin, and their whole effort is to go out to people's communities and places and try to get education to the people out there that they can recreate not just nativescape but wildscapes through the proper planting and implementation of things like water features, feeders, and shelters, of course.
Right. Well, let's talk about some of the things that you brought along. It's always fun to see this stuff because there's a beautiful decorative element to it, as well as the function of really helping out our feathered friends here. And water, the thing that I've noticed most in the garden is if you provide water, the wildlife will show up. And bird baths is simplest first step. And you have brought a couple of different varieties here.
Yeah, like this decorative one up here, it's a mosaic inlaid, but it can be decorative but yet have full function. The grout in that one right there offers something for the birds in general to grab onto and feel safe and secure. The other thing too is the gradual slope of that bath there. Having a bath that's too deep won't become a bird bath in function. It'll just be a bird trough.
Right.
So it's best to have, if you do have that deep bath, place rocks or something like that that you might have around the landscape to recreate that if you have that.
Absolutely. That's what I do in my own garden. I have a ceramic bowl, but you put rocks in, and it gets heavy use during the summertime, especially.
And it's important that you do rotate that. If you have it just standing like that, that you rotate the water out, every 3 to 5 days. So A, you don't get mosquitoes, but B, it's fresh supply.
That's absolutely right.
As opposed to
now, right next, I'm always on the lookout for handsome bird bath. I think this one really fits the bill. This is very classical looking. It's actually a cast concrete, right?
It is, but it's made to have this faux finish, but it's baked on and stained, never fades or anything like that.
Yeah.
But it does give that carved out look.
Looks like lava stone or something like that. Absolutely beautiful. And very functional as well as decorative in that the rough sides give the birds plenty of easy footing.
Exactly, and the slope as well too. It doesn't. It offers. There's always going to be a level never deeper than 1/4 inch in a bath like that.
Right.
The other thing too that you can also, if you don't have the time or inclination to go out and refill it every so often, put in just a dripper, just a simple little dripper that's
that's
simply
what we have here.
Yeah,
it just hooks on like this,
and you put it right into a spigot source, and in no time you can calibrate it to where it just barely drips. Maybe a gallon every 4 hours. So even in the heat of the summer, nothing will ever flow, and it'll be used to.
No end,
so it's used.
And the dripping, just the slight movement of the water attracts more wildlife, and it really makes a big difference.
Moving water is by far the biggest attraction to all wildlife, regardless.
Well, we all love hummingbirds and attracting hummingbirds to the yard, but you brought something that's a hummingbird feeder, but with a twist.
Well, it's not. It's sold as a hummingbird feeder, but it's sold as a planter. But I've always encouraged people to plant annuals like pintas and things that grow prolifically.
Right.
But you can plant them in unique ways. This is a planter here that's not traditional. You can start it out like a traditional pot, flip it over, and your pinta will then grow upside down, but yet you can hang it, suspend it from wherever you so please. But you can then have something that's beautiful to look at, but also providing in a hands-off way. If you can't go in there and change that hummingbird feeder,
exactly,
just plant it.
Right, and I like the notion of letting the hummingbirds have the natural food, that the nectar from the plants themselves, and so having plants that attract them, but with this beautiful decorative touch of having the planter hanging with your birdhouses or feeders. That's a great way to go.
Exactly.
Now, one of the things that you sell that I really love, because it's proved to be 99.99% squirrel proof. I did have one squirrel who seemed somehow to fly, but you sell these trees that can be placed out in the garden, and you can put baffles on them to prevent squirrels or raccoons and things getting on. And if you don't have a place that's secure from the house or a tree to hang them from, this is a great way to go, and the birds love them.
Exactly. I mean, it's like a human erector set that we say you can kind of create your own, what you want specifically. This just happens to display how something can be uniquely situated and then an island effect.
Right.
You don't have to have one thing over here, one thing over there. It can all be grouped together.
Right, and then puts on quite a show when you have the goldfinches and the chickadees and the titmice and the blue jays and everybody showing up to
it's great. The whole gamut.
Now, at the top here, we have a suet feeder, which is basically just a plastic pole with holes carved through it.
Yeah, and it's a new thing that's come out recently. It's actually made of recycled milk jugs, so it's a good way to recycle some of what we have. But basically, it's made to put spreadable suets, like this bark butter that we have here. But you can also put in homemade suets or peanut butter or whatnot. But wrens, woodpeckers, and some of the winter warblers, and even the spring warblers that move through.
And you have a traditional suet cage right below that.
Right. That's like people who use the old traditional suet blocks. It's a preformed, mold basically that you just put in there, and around here you can use it year round.
Yeah, and it attracts all different kinds of birds. You mentioned this. This is like a suet butter.
It's basically it's like peanuts, peanut butter and lard and cornmeal, and it's formulated in a way that it's not going to run and get melted on you if it's above 105 degrees.
Okay.
But basically, it allows you to put it on something, like that feeder, or if you have an old limb or something like that, you can just drill out some holes, slab it on there, and set it up, and watch the light go away.
Well, you also brought a weighted feeder, or it's a silver feeder, and this is designed to prevent birds like doves from dominating.
Right. This is one of our best sellers, basically, for not only squirrels, but the larger birds that we have, which seem to be, white-winged doves are now considered flying hogs because they just consume so much.
Right.
But that feeder and its design gives people the ability to place that feeder where they want it. They didn't have to be situated with a baffle or this far away from a wall or somewhere where a squirrel can get. So
the doves fly on there and they weigh it down and they can't get at the food. Very simple.
You can calibrate the spring and dictate who gets on it.
Right. Now, my favorite visitors are the finches. I absolutely love the lesser goldfinches, which we have year-round, and then during the wintertime, the American goldfinches. And the yellow feeder in the back here is specifically designed for them.
Correct. It's one of the best ways to bring a little bit of color and see the transition of color from winter's gray. As you get closer to spring, the American goldfinches transform themselves through the process of feeding. But thistle feeders, provide winter pleasure for everyone. So it's a great complement to the rest of the
and the yellow color helps attract the birds in.
True, that yellow, that's right. Cornell did a study and they showed, Grandpa was right when he said tie an old yellow ribbon around the old finch feeder. And so now all the finch feeders are yellow now.
Right.
So.
Well, one of the things that you can add to your finch feeder or any of these to protect them from the elements or from squirrels or what have you is an umbrella or shade or baffle device. And I like to use this with my thistle feeders because it protects them from the rain, keeps the seed fresher.
Especially like feeders like that one that's so exposed. Baffles like that, this one is a little decorative and adds a little feature to the landscape.
Right.
Does serve that function well.
And in addition, providing shelter, and we have a large group of birdhouses over here. One of the things that we have is a birdhouse on a pole, and this is again a great way for something like this, which is a bluebird house, if you have the space for it, and you could put a baffle on, again, protect them from predators.
Exactly. One central feature to that house there is the entrance to that house. It's got a little spacer that gives you about an inch or so to give predators no chance of getting to the babies. So
there you go.
Set up in the right location, that's great.
Okay, well, again, shelter, food, water, those are the essentials. And Charles, again, it's always a pleasure to have you on. These make great holiday gifts and gifts for the wildlife as well.
Thank you, Tom, for having me. It's been a pleasure again.
Okay, well, take care. And coming up next is our buddy Skip Ray.